What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode podcast to talk about our favorite team, the Arizona Cardinals. And if you watched me a little earlier, yes, this is another live stream. We are doing a night edition because today we are joined by my good buddy here, Mythic AZ, and Joe, the Cardinal Rule, which we'll be having here pretty soon. But shout out to the people that are currently in the chat. Do me a huge favor, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining in here, do me a huge favor, smack up the like button here on your way in. We are going to have a Arizona Cardinals roundtable because we got free agency starting up here pretty soon. We got a lot of different opinions coming up in the world of, obviously, the Cardinals and the NFL, and I kind of wanted to get a platform to obviously talk it up, chalk it up, and let's see, hopefully, of Monty Ossenfort, Jonathan Gannon, and everybody can be as aggressive as we all hope them to be in year 3. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in the fellas. Let's go ahead and bring them in. 1 second here. Let me just make sure I find the, here we go. Mythic, Joe, what's up, y'all? How you guys been?
Doing pretty good. Cannot complain.
Good. What about you, Joe, man? It's been a while since I had you on the channel. I'm glad you're doing good.
Yeah, man. I'm doing good, man. It's been a minute. It's always good hanging out with you guys on Talking Cardinals.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you guys for joining in. Obviously, there's a lot of good news coming from the Cardinals here. At least fingers crossed that we're going to be seeing something, down the pipeline. Hopefully, a lot of breaking news in a few days. Obviously, Monday's when the tampering period starts for the NFL. So I want to kind of get a quick gauge on how you guys are feeling about the Arizona Cardinals offseason so far, or at least dry offseason so far. But how are you guys feeling about the Cardinals heading into the 2025 season? Let's first start off with Mythic. How you doing, man, so far? How you feeling about the Arizona Cardinals?
Nothing's really happened. I mean, we're seeing a bunch of things go down right now. A lot of players getting released, cap casualties, a lot of trades going down. We're kind of staying pat. We got money. Apparently, we're in the market for some players, supposedly, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we're supposedly going to be in the market for a couple guys. We have a lot of positions to address. We're kind of staying pat. We have an extension to get done. So I think we're doing the right thing. We got to wait and get that settled down first. I hope that gets done before free agency. But I am perfectly fine just staying pat till free agency actually begins. I wanted to see us kind of dabbling with Christian Kirk, but he got traded. So we never really get free agency. That does suck, but it is what it is. But I understand it. I like what we're doing right now.
Perfect. What about you, Joe, real quick? And it's been a while, so if you want to take about a minute, definitely feel so. How you feeling so far about the Cardinals offseason and just kind of the trajectory of where we're going?
I'm a little anxious, but not necessarily for the reasons some people might be. It's not that I'm, worried that they're not doing enough or anything like that. It's just this is really the make or break season for Monty Ossenfort to kind of show that my faith in him and that the faith of other fans have had in him is warranted. He's taken thus far an approach that I really think is smart. He's drafted well. He's gone for premium positions early in the draft, non-premium positions later. He hasn't gone all out in free agency, which I actually believe that you should be judicious in free agency and focus on drafting and save that cap space mostly to extend guys like Trey McBride, the guys, if you draft well, then you pay those premium guys and extend them, and then you don't have to go big in the free agency market. Kime didn't draft well, so we had to do that. But they have a lot of, cap space, right? And so what are they going to do with that? And while I do tend to be conservative in my approach towards free agency, I would like to see them splurge a little bit at a couple key spots. I don't want them to go crazy in free agency because the best teams don't do that. But the best teams once in a while will carefully take their shot. So I really want to see how Monty responds to this first year where he's got, all this cap space. He has, in my opinion, drafted well. But how is he going to use it, right? Obviously, I would love to see that extension for McBride come sooner rather than later, and a few free agents. But I don't want to see him go crazy in free agency. But some fans might be frustrated if he doesn't. So I want to see how he approaches it. So I'm a little anxious to see what he does and how that works out.
Yeah, that's actually a very fascinating topic in terms of obviously, focusing on Monty Ossenfort here, because I do agree with the year 3 in terms of what we've been hearing from, just what the fan base was willing to accept, right? With the year 1, which makes sense. You're not going to really judge him on that. He was hired in January and you got March. When things happen, there's a lot to kind of, maneuver there. And Kyler Murray wasn't healthy to start the season. So we understood it. Year 2, kind of give him a mulligan. He's building within the draft. But year 3 is where really people want to kind of start seeing a splash. Let me ask you real quick, Justin, how you feel about Monty Ossenfort right now. I know obviously we're going to have a little bit more this coming Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or when free agency is all said and done. But how do you feel about his job so far and what he's done for the Arizona Cardinals heading into year 3?
I feel like he's done a fantastic job taking over Steve Keim's messy roster of just a whole bunch of players who probably shouldn't have been NFL caliber talent. As soon as they got cut, released, whatever, outside of the big names like DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Humphries, who got picked up by the Chiefs, Hollywood Brown, all those like mid-tier, second string potential starters, some of those guys didn't get picked up, and they have never translated past what we had. So they weren't good football players. Steve Keim did not know how to hit on drafts.
Yeah.
Monty Ossenfort has built this thing, completely destroyed it, and has rebuilt it up to a team that went to 4 wins to 8 wins in 2 years by just scratching everything and building a team in his image. And he's done a fantastic job building through the draft, signing decent people, not great people. Like, I understand the signings, but they never materialized because they got hurt. The
Yeah.
guys were supposed to be here because they played games and were durable, which is what we missed in year one. The defensive tackles could not stay healthy. So what do? We bring 2 mid-level guys to come in here who have played games. They're veterans, and then they go down before week 5. Like, that's just unfortunate. That's just our
Yeah.
luck. But I feel like Monty Ossenfort has done a really, really good job staying pat, building money, getting rid of dead cap. Like, we're in a really good spot. I believe we're like bottom 5 in the league in dead cap, if I'm not mistaken, which is fantastic. All of that was year one. Monty Ossenfort was willing to eat that, and now we're in a perfect position to strike with the NFC West being potentially weaker. So I'm very curious to see what he does in free agency, but I think he's done a really good job so far, just
Yeah.
overall.
So let me piggyback with what you just said right now, the NFC West, just real quick. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of moving parts going on with the NFC West. You got the 49ers trying to clear up some cap space, whether that's for Brock Purdy or for any other moves that they're trying to do. Maybe reuniting the Bosa brothers. We don't exactly know what they're trying to do, but we also see the Seattle Seahawks, the DK Metcalf trade rumors or him, putting out a trade request out there, them releasing Tyler Lockett, and then the Rams going after Tutu Atwell and bringing him back, bringing back Matthew Stafford after that big whole, hoopla that was going on. There seems to be a crack within the NFC West, or at least from our perspective as Arizona Cardinal fans, and I'm not sure if you guys agree. I do think that it is pretty wide open right now. Now, I still do think that the 49ers, if healthy, can still be the favorites within the NFC West. And I know the Rams are always going to give us a run for our money, but do you guys feel like the Arizona Cardinals, if the right guys are chosen in free agency as well as the draft, can be real competitors to win the NFC West this year? Let me ask you that first, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the NFC West is, really up for grabs right now. There's a lot of transition. I think some fans are maybe getting a little too excited about like the demise of the other teams. I don't think these teams are all just going to be, cellar dwellers. I mean, yes, they might be moving off of key players like DK Metcalf potentially if he, gets his request to be traded and things like that. But those teams aren't just going to, shed those players and stand pat. They're going to try to build the rosters back up, and those are teams with some histories of success in various ways and various levels. But it is a period of transition where the Cardinals do have a shot, right? If the Cardinals are building the way that I think we all think they have been, smart through the draft, put themselves in a great position, just like Justin said, right? He nailed it in terms of describing what Monty's done to put them in a position to make that move. So do they capitalize on that? Do they get the right players in, extend the right players, bring in the right free agents, have another good year drafting, see the players they've drafted take that next step, and have that really good roster that they hope they're going to have with all those young players that they've drafted, and build a team the right way? If all those things kind of coalesce the way we're hoping they will, and that this is the pivotal year, right? This is the year for all those things to come together and for this to be a playoff team. If that happens, the division is absolutely ripe for the taking. But do not write off those other teams, so quickly. But yeah, the 49ers are in a big transition. They do have a young quarterback and a young core and a coach who I do think is a really good coach, even though, he's been up and down. So 49ers are going to be there. They might have an off year here or there. The Seahawks they have some good young players, but the quarterback situation, Geno, I don't think he's the guy long term. There's some transition there, and then the Rams are an older team in terms of especially key players, especially the quarterback, and they might have one last shot in them. But there's a really good chance to really kind of assert yourself as the team in the division this year.
Perfect. What about you, Justin? What are your thoughts?
I agree completely. The NFC West, like it seems like Seattle's kind of going towards a retool more than anything. I think their defense is in a really good spot, especially their secondary. So I don't think this is a team that's going to completely blow up, but they do need a question answered at quarterback. Geno Smith, I have not been a believer for the past 3 seasons. He's beaten us, but like again, I don't think that really means anything because our defense hasn't really stood tall in the games we needed them to against them. Zach Charbonnet popped off for 2 touchdowns, 126 yards. And their run blocking was abysmal all year, but they completely dominated the line of scrimmage against us. It was kind of just embarrassing. But like Geno Smith isn't the reason they won any of those games. They need to answer that. Seattle obviously losing 2 of their key receivers, still have Jackson Smith and Jigba, but the offense isn't really moving me. The Rams, like Joe said, one last shot is what it kind of seems like. Matthew Stafford brought back. I don't know how long term this is going to be. Cooper Kupp will probably be released, if not traded. I assume he's going to be released. I don't know if they're going to be able to find a trade partner. I don't know who's willing to give up assets for Cooper Kupp in 2025. I think he's still productive, just very injury prone. And then the 49ers, that is a wild card. That is a complete coin toss. They're shipping Debo Samuel to Washington. Brandon Ayuk, they're fielding calls right now. Dre Greenlaw's gone. Hafunga's gone. Like there's a lot of things and moving parts for San Francisco, but they have one of the easiest schedules in the league. So it's really a coin toss. And if Brock Purdy can perform. Trent Williams, also really old. This is probably going to be the last year for him if I'm going to take a shot at that. Christian McCaffrey, is he going to be able to stay healthy? I don't know. The NFC West is just wide open. The Cardinals need to capitalize. We need to bring in better talent, and then we're going to be in a really good spot. But we won 8 games with a lot of holes on this team. I think we can all agree there were so many holes on this team, and we still piled off 8 wins. Could have even had more. This could have been a 10-win team last year, and we walked away with 8. A positive step in the direction, but the NFC West, wide open.
All right, perfect. Well, that kind of segues us to obviously what we want to talk about here is going to be the free agency poll that's going to be starting here this coming Monday, at least the legal tampering period and free agencies technically on Wednesday. But let's go and get started here. I went ahead and made these fine young gentlemen here. You know, I asked them a question: what do you guys want the Arizona Cardinals to do? 3 things, and you can elaborate, but obviously for the sake of the graphics that I ended up having, I do have 3 things that obviously I kind of want you guys to elaborate on. So for the sake of what we got going on, let's start off with Mythic's must-haves. And I know you guys can't see the graphic, but I have a little picture of Mythic's little head in the corner. It's absolutely amazing. So let's go ahead and start off with Mythic. What are your must-haves for this coming Monday? And where do you want the Arizona Cardinals to go? And obviously we got a lot of money to spend, but where do you want the money to be spent this year in free agency?
So first things first, I think Milton Williams is the most coveted free agent for the Arizona Cardinals. If we can walk away with Milton Williams, I would say that is an absolute win. He's like 25, 26 years old, played phenomenal for Philadelphia. You put him on this defensive line, you build that with Darius Robinson, I think you are in such a good spot. And he also has the Super Bowl experience, the winning experience. Bring that in. And if he does come with Josh Sweat, I would not be opposed to that whatsoever. Apparently, a lot of people are linking them as like a package deal to Arizona. I've heard that all the time. Like there's no like real sources to that, but like it's just something I see floating around. Very interesting. If that does happen, I would not be opposed. Someone else who I think is very interesting is Kazir White seems to be on his way out.
Yeah.
Dre Greenlaw is hitting free agency, coming off a torn Achilles last year, came back in the back half of the season. He's looking for a multi-year deal. I would be willing to throw him a 2 to 3 year contract, give him that solidity, and let him be the Mike linebacker of this team. I genuinely would. What he performed and how we performed in San Francisco, I know the Achilles is one of those injuries that is so tough to bounce back from, but I think he's going to be just fine. I would hand him a 2 to 3 year contract, easily solidify the middle of the field. We would be insanely athletic. Getting those 2 guys, we would be a lot better, a lot more stable, and that would help the defense out a lot. Or you go Josh Sweat, you could pivot, you could do that too. Or offensively, I want a Christian Kirk so bad. I thought it was a perfect move. Bring him in the slot. Keep Michael Wilson on the outside. Marvin Harrison coming into year 2. That just sounded so nice on paper. Christian Kirk just filled every single like problem we had with this offense. He's a way better Greg Dortch. Pushes the ball down the field, can get down the field. Good hands, good separation, good speed. It just would have been so nice. And he has a rapport with Kyler Murray already. I know things kind of fell out, and his mom, I believe, went on like X or Twitter and kind of like bashed Kyler, and things didn't end very well. But like I think all things can mend. It's been what, 3 years, 4 years? Like, come on. They're grown adults. Their parents have nothing to do with this. Like if Christian Kirk wanted to come back to Arizona, he would. He's from here, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. That would have been nice. But Devontae Adams is another guy that I've been floating out. This is something for Marvin Harrison's development that is very interesting, and this is a kind of a wild card pick. But if you get Devontae Adams, one of the game's best route runners of all time, probably a top 5 route runner that we've ever seen, and yes, he's 32 years old, played 14 games last season, but Devontae Adams still cracked 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 85 receptions. And we saw what he did with DeAndre Hopkins. This is another back shoulder fade guy with elite separation. He's not the same player that he once was at 27, 28 years old with Aaron Rodgers, but he's still very productive. Can crack 1,000 yards, pair him alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. You can move Michael Wilson to the slot. That would be great. Or you could get Darius Slayton too, another receiver that I really like. The other receivers, there's a lot of like elite looking names, if you want to even call it that, but they're like, there's just a lot of things wrong. Whether they're a locker room cancer, injury prone, coming off freak injuries, just don't fit, old. Like there's just a lot of receivers that are in this class with big names that don't make sense. Like Chris Godwin, Odell Beckham. I think we got to stay away from a lot of these guys. But Darius Slayton and Devontae Adams, I would hope the Cardinals would dabble in because I don't want to see Greg Dortch as our starting slot receiver next year. We tried it. We experimented. We gave him the keys. It's not a position that necessarily gets utilized in this offense either, which kind of sucks. But I feel like Christian Kirk would have been pretty good. I really do. But you go ahead and get Darius Slayton. You can move Michael Wilson to the slot. That gives you 3 big body receivers. If you get Devontae Adams, Darius Slayton, I believe, is 6 foot tall. Really good. That would help the offense a ton. Or you can go the draft route if you really want. I don't know if the Cardinals would even consider dabbling because we need guards. We need a tackle, defense. We need so many things right now. And I could have included guards too. But I think the Cardinals ultimately will bring back Will Hernandez. I truly believe that. And then we're going to draft somebody. Or there's some decent guards. There's some mid-level guards that you can get to. But I don't know. I would like to see wide receiver too. I think that needs to be addressed. And if we can get someone like Devontae Adams, that'd be great. It might be far-fetched, but you never know. We're kind of in a position where we could strike right now. So if you want to go make a move and throw Devontae $12 million, $16 million on a 1-year contract, by all means, or incentivize it where it's like a 12 million flat with like a 4 million up to incentive to get to 16. That would work too. We're seeing receivers get paid elite money, so maybe it would cost a little more and we're out of the market, but I would still like to see it be entertained.
I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, that's why we have these conversations, right? Because like the thoughts of just putting it out into ether. I mean, you never know what the heck's going to happen, right? Free agency in the NFL is a crazy world. But let me be clear: you are saying either Devontae Adams or Darius Slayton, right? And I'm not saying like they're, but that's what you're saying, right? You're not saying get both of them, correct?
No, just one.
Yeah, that makes okay, cool. So definitely wide receiver up there. You have any questions on anything here, Joe, from my guy Mythic's must-haves? Just to recap: Milton Williams, Dre Greenlaw, Devontae Adams, or Darius Slayton.
Well, so I just want, just know I didn't copy off his homework because one of my answers is going to be the same. So I promise I didn't copy off your homework. I have some different players when we get to mine. I will tell you, although I didn't have a middle linebacker, I like the idea of a middle linebacker. Yeah. If we had 4 picks, I probably would have put a middle linebacker because Kaiser White's a free agent. Yeah. Mac Wilson Sr. was a nice pickup, but we need another inside linebacker in with that, right? So I really like that. I'm not going receivers in free agency. That's just me, aside from maybe some depth, because I really feel like this offense is building more around the tight end and running game. So I'm not doing that for my philosophy on it, but I don't dislike the idea of Adams. I think the mentorship thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. is a really interesting angle on that.
No, absolutely. All right, let's move on over to Joe's list must-haves. All right, let me get that graphic up and going. Here we go. All right, Joe, go ahead and take it away. If you need the order that I have here, let me know. If you could see it, then rock and roll.
I've got the lag on your YouTube channel, so I'm watching it. But I'm enjoying the graphic with Mythic's face on there. So I can't wait to see how bad mine is. But let me just say, while I'm waiting for that, thank you for saying young men. Flattery will get you everywhere because. Right. But all right, there we go. That's not a bad picture. Okay, so obviously Milton Williams, and kind of the way I looked at it, and it was a little more a collection of players. Like I really looked at it like they need to sign at least 2 guards, and I'll give some of the other names I was thinking. Mekhi Becton was one of them. It doesn't necessarily have to be him, but then I felt like they need to sign at least 1 big free agent at defensive interior or edge. Obviously, we've got a pair of them on here. So, Milton Williams, I mean, interior defensive lineman, they need to sign a free agent at that position and probably also draft someone in one of the first 2 rounds at defensive interior lineman. They need to really shore up that position. They've gone with reclamation projects, 6th round picks. guys that have, overachieved here and there, and guys that have underachieved, and guys that just got injured. They need this, this is a year to really shore that up. And, they made some strides in terms of the defense, how they played with a very scrap heap sort of roster at that position. So Milton Williams would be great. If they can't get him, there's some other names out there, obviously, but I feel like they need to get someone there. Josh Sweat would be a great edge player. Other players you might also look at besides him could be Chase Young, Aziz Ojulari. But for me, I want to see them get at least one impact player on the defensive line. It could be edge or defensive tackle, either one or both. But that's where I want to see them take a splash. If they're gonna splurge a little bit and go for more than just a serviceable guy, but go for someone who's going to be an impact player. To me, it's that defensive front where they needed the most help. Every other spot on the roster, I feel like they've got younger guys that they're developing that have, some potential. The cornerback room is a room you might look at, well, they need help there. Yeah, but they've got a lot of young guys that I kind of like, right? And that I think they're developing. Every other position, there's guys. It's a defensive line and edge where they need an infusion of some talent in the worst way. So that's where I've got Williams and Josh Sweat. And then Becton, again, there's other names. Really, the way I looked at with guard is they need to sign two guards, whether it's free re-signing or free agents. So they need because they've got Isaiah Adams, who started late in the season, was looking decent, but they need three starting caliber guards that amongst those three, they get their starting two out of, if that makes sense. If someone gets injured or someone isn't playing well, they rotate them out. So, Mekhi Becton, Will Hernandez, Evan Brown, Tristan Colon, Will Freeze, Tevin Jenkins, James Daniels. Those are some other names. If you give me two names out of that list, then I'm happy, right?
Yeah.
And then you have those guys rotating with Isaiah Adams in terms of the free agents.
Okay, so I want to be very clear. I saw somebody in the chat says we're not going to be able to afford all those guys, and I want to be clear. I don't think that was the assignment here. We just were saying like we would love to see either of the list happen, right? So like let's say for example, Joe would love to either see Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, or maybe even his guard of choice, right? We're not saying you got to get all three to make it happen because obviously we have the fourth amount of effective cap space heading to the 2025 season, but realistically it's gonna be really hard to get all three of our must-haves. But we want to be very clear. We would just love to see at least one or two of our lists come true. But I love the list, man. I really do. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Mekhi Becton, and I know you did go ahead and bring some more names out there as well. Justin, you have any questions for my guy Joe?
No, I like it. I agree. I think we need two guards, whether that's through free agency or the draft. It needs to be addressed. Whether we bring back somebody like Will Hernandez coming off an ACL tear, I'm not really comfortable rocking Isaiah Adams, especially if we want to be a competent team. Maybe he takes a leap, maybe he develops better, but I think there's mid-tier guards that you can get for $5 to $10 million in free agency that will give you better, if not the same production. So I think we need to go out and dabble in.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, let's get over to the Mike's must-haves. Drum roll, please. It ain't that big of a deal, but here we go. All right. So I was gonna put Milton on here too, but I was like, I want to be different from you guys. I want to do something different. So Milton's obviously a top priority for me as well. But for the sake of trying to be different from you guys, this is gonna be my list. And I know UKs can't see it on your end unless you're watching the actual live stream. So just to kind of let Mythic know, we got Josh Sweat at the top. That's what I would love to see. Wanted to mix it up here with the middle linebacker. I don't know. The idea of Nick Bolton, love what he did in the Chiefs. Man, there's something about him, the way he plays, the way he tackles, the way he goes side to sideline. I would love nothing more than potentially going after him. Now, I also did have on my last video, I posted like 5 targets I want the Cardinals to go for. Honestly, believe it or not, I also wanted the Cardinals to go after a wide receiver. Christian Kirk wasn't up there for me, and I do believe in all, I agree on a lot of your points of what you're saying, but I had my eye on Tutu Atwell from the Rams. Now, obviously, that's not attainable anymore. He ended up signing a 1-year contract, $10 million with the Rams, so good for him, but I'm looking for a wide receiver as well. So my list is Josh Sweat, Nick Bolton, and you better darn tootin', I put him on the bottom, trade for Trey Hendrickson. I want to see a splash move here for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I get it. If you go after Josh Sweat and Nick Bolton, you're not going to be able to go after Trey Hendrickson. I'm fully aware of that. But if we do go after a Trey Hendrickson, I would love nothing more than the Cardinals to do something like that. But I would take Josh Sweat. over the trade, but there's something that intrigues me about bringing in a guy that's been doing 17.5 sacks 2 back-to-back seasons. I would love nothing more than bringing him in. Now, I know there's some people out there that could say he benefited from the defensive line. He's, not that great. He's 30 years old. I don't know, man. Something about him really kind of gets my gears going. I would love nothing more than the Cardinals doing that, but giving a little bit more love to Nick Bolton. This is the middle linebacker that I would love to bring into this team. And we do have a big hole that we need to address, and that's because Kazir White obviously putting that cryptic Instagram post, and we've seen that with DeAndre Hopkins as well when he was like, "Thanks for everything," or "Thanks Arizona." That's exactly what Kazir White ended up doing as well. So it most likely feels like he's going to hit the open market. Now, can the Cardinals decide to bring him back? Of course they can, right? Everything's on the table, but it seems like he is going to test the market. He ended up getting himself a new sports agency, so we got some, more negotiations with different, guys. I think he's trying to get his last big payday before maybe he calls it quits. So makes sense in the grand scheme of things. But of course, Josh Sweat has been a guy that I've been talking about for midway through the season. I only got on Milton Williams because a couple of my subscribers got me on him. So I'll shout out to my guy RC3 that's always been on my streams and letting me know about him. But Josh Webb, Nick Bolton, and hopefully trade for Trey Hendrickson. What say you guys? Go ahead. Bring it. Let's go with Justin first. Questions.
Trey Hendrickson's not someone I am really high on necessarily. I think he's one of those guys who can get to the quarterback, but in the run game is a little shaky. He just seems like he constantly wants to get to the quarterback, which is a good thing. I mean, there's some people who have a talent for that and just a natural knack, but I don't know. When it comes to the run game, I would be a little worried, which we do not excel at, but
Right.
you never know. You never know. Maybe he gets schemed up better and he brings the talent. I don't know what it's going to cost to get him because he had a ridiculous season last year. I believe he was a sack leader, if I'm not mistaken.
Believe
So they're not going to trade him for cheap. They're not going to trade him for cheap just off that alone. But I'm cool staying away from that, just attacking it in free agency. But the rest of the list would not be mad whatsoever.
Perfect. All right. I got the stamp of approval from my guy, Justin. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm with Justin on the Trey Hendrickson thing. I'm not a big fan of trading for players unless it's a franchise changing player at like a quarterback situation or something like that, or maybe a player that you're able to trade for and get a really good deal on them for some reason. Trey Hendrickson's a nice player. They need help at edge, but I would rather, you're going to pay him money and give up a draft pick or draft compensation. I would rather, if I'm going to spend that money, spend it on a free agent or just kind of hold my cards and draft an edge in the first round and develop, and trust that they're going to get some production out of BJ Ojulari and someone they draft and, Darius Robinson, rather than trade an asset for an aging player who's good, but you're going to pay him money and give up a pick. So I'm just, and maybe it's just a fundamental thing. I'm not really a big fan of that approach in general. Nick Bolton, I love him as a player. I think, middle linebacker is one of those positions that's, a non-premium position. So he's a premium player. So you're going to pay a lot of money for him. He's, just a really top free agent. So I'm a little leery of spending big money on a middle linebacker. I'd rather probably draft, develop, and get guys like Mac Wilson Sr., who we paid a little bit for, but not as much as Bolton's going to cost. And you can kind of work with that. Obviously Josh Sweat was on my list. So I like that. I like the positions, obviously, like edge and bringing in a middle linebacker, much like Justin had a middle linebacker as well. I do think that's a position they need to address. So I like the positions. I fundamentally, I'm not a trade guy unless it's a big move that is a franchise changer. But I like the names on your list.
Do you see? So let me ask you guys this, and that's a question for both. Do you guys see? Do you like the Myles Garrett trade, or are you guys still in the same boat of maybe not aging? Getting up there in age. What do you think if a Myles Garrett was on this list? Let me ask you, Justin, first.
I mean, I don't believe he's looking for a deal. Cleveland said they're willing to pay him like a ton of money, and he turned that down. He said that's not why he wants to leave. Yeah. He wants to leave because it's Cleveland, and they have no direction, no future, quarterback situation. He just re-ruptured his Achilles, I believe, and the rehab isn't going as expected. Like, the Cleveland Browns have no direction. That's a complete rebuild. He's in his prime years, doesn't want to play for Cleveland. So I assume he would get traded if Cleveland is smart, if they're not going to be stupid and hold this thing off.
Right.
Like, obviously you want to retain him, but it just doesn't make sense right now. You're rebuilding. You're going to waste his prime years. Just trade him off, get picks. That's a smart thing to do. I wouldn't be opposed I like the idea. It just depends how steep the ask is. If it's 2 first-round picks,
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know if we can mortgage 2 first-round picks. Now, this is probably a top 2 defender in all of football.
Right.
So you're going to have to pay up a ton when it comes to draft capital.
Right. What about you, Joe? What about Miles?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
know.
My bad.
No, you're good. I don't know. I like the idea. It just depends.
What? Okay. What about you, Joe? What about the trading for a potential Miles Garrett? And I know it goes back and forth. The Browns want him. They don't want it. Back and
Yeah.
forth. But we know that he got a trade request and he wants out. What say you, Joe?
Yeah. Miles Garrett is a player of the caliber that I'd be willing to trade. Like he is, elite edge rusher. He's one of about 3 guys at his tier. You could argue, he's a little bit older, but he's still within his prime. And this year, if you could make it happen without giving a future first round pick, like this year's first round pick, middle of the draft, there's the positions and players we'd be looking to go for would be defensive line or edge, most likely. It's not like we're sitting there with Marvin Harrison Jr., staring us down, or a quarterback that we need staring us down. We're in the middle of the first round, and the position we're going to probably take would be one that is same position, except we could get Miles Garrett. So if we could make it happen with this year's first round pick and maybe a day 2 pick in the future, I'd be on board with that. I'm not giving up future first round pick and this year's first round pick. I would much rather give up this year's, where it looks like, okay, well, we're getting the 3rd best edge in the draft, or we can package it for Miles Garrett. Yeah, give me a trade for Miles Garrett.
Cool. All right. Well, do you guys have a little bit more time, or do you guys need to go? I have a couple questions. You good?
No, we're good.
Okay, cool. All right. Because obviously there's a lot of things going on. Nothing with the listing. We're going to take the list right down here. So let me go and just change the graphic here. Let me know in the chat what you guys think of everybody's must-haves, Mike's must-haves, Joe's must-haves, as well as Mythic must-haves in the chat below. If you're watching this on a playback, let me know how you guys feeling about the must-haves that we have here. But obviously a lot of, intrigue coming into the world of the NFL with a lot of crazy things happening already. Christian Kirk ends up getting signed when he was already told he was going to be released. But of course, he gets traded within the division. What is the most shocking thing that you've seen so far in I guess from Wednesday, because that's when we started to kind of see a lot of things happen within the NFL world. Is there anything right now that kind of took you back saying, oh, snap, that's very shocking? Either a release, either a trade, or either an extension. If anybody's got an answer, please feel free to raise your hand. If not, I don't mind going.
Shocking. I wouldn't say anything's necessarily shocking. I feel like everything that's taken place is kind of to be expected. The only thing that I could label shocking was Debo to the Commanders, but that's not really shocking because Debo Samuel was one of those names floated around. He looks out of shape. Like San Francisco is trying to get rid of him and Brandon Ayuk. They're still actively shopping Brandon Ayuk as we speak. So nothing's necessarily happened that's insane. And we knew Christian Kirk was a name that was floating around because he was a cap casualty, and so was Evan Ingram, who also got cut. And I believe they also cut somebody else. So they're just going through it right now. I don't think anything insane has happened. I'd say the most shocking to me is probably Debo. We knew Tyler Lockett. Maybe the DK Metcalf trade request is a little shocking, but they rumored to potentially trade him to Green Bay a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was a week ago he was in trade rumors. They're not willing to pay him. He probably feels slighted, wants out. So it's not shocking that he requested the trade because he still hasn't gotten paid. So I understand it. So I'd probably say Debo Samuel so far getting traded to Washington is probably the most shocking, but it's not insanely shocking yet. Nothing has popped off yet.
You're just saying to the team that he went to, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting fit because they're pairing him with Cliff, who it's always that gadgety guy, but the gadgety guys never really worked here. So I don't know where they get the narrative from because we had Rondale Moore, we had all these people, and we just never really got it to work. So maybe Debo Samuel gets it done, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest Debo Samuel fan.
Fair. All right. What about you, Joe? Anything that kind of shocked you so far? You're like, oh man, that's shocking.
Yeah, I mean, none of the actual moves are terribly shocking. Devontae Adams getting released is, kind of, well, he's an aging vet and he was here for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is gone. So that makes sense, right? None of them are really terribly surprising. Maybe Joey Bosa a little bit, but he's had injuries. I would kind of tend to agree, the rumor that, DK Metcalf may be on the move. Not that there weren't whispers of that, but that's a player in his prime. This is if you're looking at the Seahawks, this is a team with a really good young defense. They just, the Lockett is now gone, and they're trying to build a team for the future. DK Metcalf would be a centerpiece, you would think, of that offensive rebuild, right? The best player on offense, arguably. So that the fact that he might be on the move is interesting and a little surprising based on where they're at, right? Trying to rebuild that team. He would be a key player you would think they want to keep. So that's probably the most surprising. Everyone else, you understand why, injuries or aging or something. And he's like a guy who's kind of in his prime in a team that's looking to build. So that's probably the most surprising thing there.
Okay. To me, and it's only because I wanted him, I would say, and it's not like you guys said, it's not shocking because for the team, if you were any other team, you would do the exact same thing. But the Max Crosby thing kind of took me by a little bit of a shock because it almost kind of seemed like he kind of wanted out, but also he didn't at the same time. But obviously, it makes sense that he got extended. But man, what a crazy makes sense. He deserves every penny. But man, 3-year, $106 million. So extension to Crosby, and like I said, it's only kind of something to worth talk about because I remember like 2-3 weeks ago, man, we were talking about potential trades and blockbuster trades that the Arizona Cardinals could make, and Crosby was up there because of this cryptic tweet that he put out there about it was something to do with Scarface. I forgot exactly what it said, but yeah, I mean, good for him. He deserves every single penny, but it's insane that all three of those pass rushers that people thought that blockbusters can potentially be, it's kind of starting to dwindle down now. Let me ask you guys this real quick. Micah Parsons, you think he's going to stay with the Cowboys? Or do you think they're going to trade him or do something, or they're going to write his contract out? I ended up hearing something on NFL Network here that they got no hurry. They got no hurry right now. They're just relaxing right now when it comes down to Micah Parsons. So what say you guys about Micah? Let's start off with Justin first.
Didn't they just restructure Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb's contract? If I'm not mistaken. So they opened up a lot of money. So I think an extension will get done. But it's going to be one of those things like San Francisco where you push it down the line so much that your contracts are going to catch up to you. I think they will get an extension done, which is unfortunate, but they will probably get something done. Wow. And I'm assuming he might not crack top edge money because he said that's not even that big of a priority because he'd rather have people around him. Osa just got paid. So maybe Micah takes a little bit less, maybe like $5 to $6 million less than what Max Crosby just got because he just got paid. Like you just said, 3 years, $106.5 million with over $90 million guaranteed money. Insane contract. But I could imagine they would pay him. I would hope so. From their perspective, Cowboys fans' perspective, I would hope they get something done. From my perspective as a Cardinals fan, I have a completely different mindset.
That's fair. All right. What about you, Joe?
They say everything's bigger in Texas, and it is, including the spectacle, the distraction, and the noise. If you look at the Cowboys, this happens when they have a notable free agent. They get it done. It's just loud, noisy in the media. Think about Dak Prescott, right? Like, how many times was his situation like, is it going to get done? And Jerry Jones just can't help himself. He just wants to make it a spectacle, right? But the guys they want, they get it done, right? They just do it more noisy and with more, media attention than other teams. And I think he is a player you have to keep, right? If you're looking at the Cowboys, he's in his prime. He's an elite player at his position, in an important position, a premium position, rushing the passer. He's a guy they're going to prioritize and they're going to figure out, but it's going to be a circus like it always is with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys.
Seriously.
Right?
Absolutely. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
No, that's it. It's going to be a circus, but they'll get it done. It's just going to feel like it's not going to happen because they make it a circus. And that's standard operating procedure for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys.
It's true, man. You're 100% right. It almost kind of feels like everything has to be some sort of drama, right? Some sort of drama with the Dallas Cowboys. But that's the thing, too. Like, the media feeds into it. The fan base that is so big within the Dallas Cowboys, they can do stuff like that where, the Dallas Cowboys organization as a franchise, they're almost kind of bigger than football. Like, it almost kind of feels like it's like, I remember me growing up, my dad was a Cowboys fan. He's never stepped foot in Dallas a day in his life, but because they were so dominant in the 90s, you trying to gravitate towards those type of teams, and they still have that name, man. They still have that, that respect on their name. Now, obviously, they haven't had a lot of success since the '90s, but that's neither here nor there. But let me ask you: are you guys good with the draft right now? Like, is there a prospect right now? Like, this is the last question I have for you guys, and then we're going to be closing up shop. But I do have a question in the 16th overall spot. If there's one player that falls, that's realistic, and I don't want to hear you guys say Abdul Carter unless we trade up. If there's one player that you realistically think is going to fall to 16, who do you want that guy to be? I know there's a bunch of different answers out there, whether it's Kenneth Grant, whether it's Michael Williams, James Pierce Jr. went crazy in the combine. Is there one guy that you would love the Cardinals to get at 16? And of course, things can change from now. We're recording this on March the 6th, and we got till the end of freaking April, so things can change from here to then. But as of right now, is there one specific draft prospect that you would love the Cardinals to potentially go after in the 16th overall spot that's realistic right now? Let's start off with Joe first.
I mean, Kenneth Grant's the guy I look at, right? They, the defensive tackle, big guy, out of Michigan, has graded well both against as a pass rusher and against the run, more of a run defender. Doesn't have a ton of sacks, but for interior defensive line, 3 last year, 5 the year before, and good run, like for especially if you're a good run defender. He could really just be that really great guy in the interior there. So that's the guy I would look at, that seems realistic. There is Kenneth Grant.
Kenneth Grant. Okay. Mythic, I'm going over to you. Is there anybody right now? Are you caught up with the combine? Are you caught up with these prospects? What say you?
I would say Kenneth Grant as well, but I'm going to shift because I want to be different. Josh Simmons is kind of interesting.
Ooh.
Josh Simmons is very interesting. Coming off an ACL tear, I think he might be available, but he is a tackle. It is a coveted position. You obviously have the position durability with Paris Johnson. You could slide him wherever you want. You brought him in to be the left tackle of the future. Just slide Josh Simmons in at right tackle. I think you have the 2 Ohio State guys. You just signed Fry, the offensive line coach from Ohio State. So the connection's there. He's talked highly of Paris. I think it would be an interesting move. You get 2 potential franchise tackles. You just got to build the interior. That's all you got to do. Build the interior. You got Froholt. Go get 2 guards in free agency or potentially later draft. You're in a good spot. I think there's a lot of defensive free agents we could pick up. There's a lot of defensive talent that we can pick up at edge, at defensive line. I think D-line is probably the deepest position in this draft. So you're going to be able to get guys in round 2. You're going to be able to get guys in round 3. I'm not as high on the edges in this class as a lot of people are. And there's a lot of things that have come out about Mike Green with the SA charges. Apparently there's 2 of them, and it's like a repeated thing. I don't know the validity on any of that. I just saw the report come out. Obviously, you have to take that into account. Do your due diligence. The front office will do that. If he's not a character fit, he's not going to be a character fit. Right. James Pierce, I don't know where this rumor came from. It always happens during draft
Eagles.
Time. Really, it might be. But like every time the draft comes around, people bash characters. So you have to make sure there's validity to these, and you have to make sure they are actually valid points. James Pierce apparently has character issues. We don't know what that is. They're going to be able to one-on-one interview him. I'm assuming they're going to be able to get him into the room. They're going to want to meet with him and actually feel him out as a person and see what the vibe is. They're going to be able to figure out a lot more than we are. They know a lot more than we do. Scouting, they're going to be able to talk to a lot of guys. So I think we're in a good spot, but Josh Simmons is probably going to be my answer. I think he will be there at 16 too, just because of the ACL. If he's not, I'd be a little shocked, but I wouldn't be opposed.
I love it. I love the differentness. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna be different too, and I'm gonna go for that character guy, the character issue guy. Not Mike Green, which at one point I was really, really high on, but I know with all the stuff that was going on with him, I know he ended up addressing it in the combine with the questions being arise, but I just don't see that as a Monty move. I mean, I just don't think he's gonna be there as well. He might be, but I don't think he will. So I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. I think he did a fantastic job in the combine. I feel like the Arizona Cardinals can benefit from getting a guy like James Pierce Jr. This would be a edge rusher, hopefully, of the future, and hopefully we can replicate and getting our own freaking Jared First at, 17, 18, wherever the hell the Rams ended up getting their edge rusher. I want to get an edge rusher with the 16th overall pick, but I'm not opposed to getting a interior guy like a Kenneth Grant or even a Walter Nolan, right? Somebody like that would be really cool for the Cardinals as well, but right now my mindset is James Pierce Jr. Like, especially if we go after Milton Williams, which I know is on your guys' must-have lists. If they go after that, James Pierce, I feel like this guy is going to blossom into being somebody really, really good for uh, for us in the NFL if he does obviously translate, because what we got the 49ers at number 11, which I don't know, they're kind of going back and forth, but it seems like their pick is going to be the trenches. And then you got the Seattle Seahawks sitting about like 2 picks after us. And I'm kind of a little worried about a guy like that, and especially that defensive line that was wreaking havoc on us the both times we played with freaking Leonard Williams. I just don't want him to fall over to the Seattle Seahawks. And I kind of want him as a player as well. So my guy right now, and it can change. We got the ability to change it, but right now I do got James Pierce Jr. Sitting at the 16th overall pick. Do you guys think it's realistic that he's there? I think so. Right?
I think so.
Cool.
Possible. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, perfect. Well, we're going to be closing up shop right here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you guys can go ahead and just quick plug yourself where everybody can find you. Let's first start off with Justin. I know you are on the road to 8K on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's
8,000.
go. Tell everybody where they can find you.
YouTube at Mythic AZ. Instagram is It's Mythic AZ, or you can find me on X at I'm Mythic AZ. Those are the 3 socials. TikTok, I believe it's Mythic AZ. If you guys want to drop a follow there too, post in there. Check me out.
Perfect. Joe?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JOKOMO13, JoKomo13. I'm also on Blue Sky Social now, Joseph.Camo there. You can find me on YouTube at The Cardinal Rule. Haven't done much there lately, but we're kind of in the works to get some things up and going, maybe with a few other people who will be working with me on that a little bit. More to come on that. But yeah, follow me on those platforms.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, obviously, appreciate you guys for jumping on. I know it's a little late here on our end. I got a little shut eye, but all right.
I'm East Coast, dude. It's 10 o'clock where I'm at.
It's 8 p.m. and I'm already tired. I mean, Mythic's over there. He's gonna be staying up till 3 a.m. Look at him. He's got the eye of the tiger. All right, yo. Let's close up shop right here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Do me a huge favor. Smack up the like button on your way out. Subscribe. We're on the road to 70K. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Cardinals.